honors people's time. Welcome to the March Town Hall. I'm Sheila Edwards-Lang, and I'm the Chancellor here at UW Tacoma. And I want to start with our land acknowledgement. We recognize that all of us at UW Tacoma learn, live, and work on or near the ancestral home of the Coast Salish people. In particular, we are situated on the traditional territory of the Puyallup tribe. As people on this occupied territory, we have a responsibility to acknowledge the land, the ancestors who have cared for this land since time immemorial, and all of our indigenous connections today. We also have the responsibility to acknowledge the histories of dispossession and forced removal that have allowed for the growth and survival of this very institution. In light of this history, let us take active efforts to partner with our indigenous community members and neighbors as we continue our work together as a community of learners, leaders, and educators. So thank you all for being here today. And for those of you who are watching, streaming it live, just a reminder that we are trying something new this year. So we are alternating between having a town hall where we're actually engaging around an issue and then an update. So this is an update where we will give information, we'll take questions, you can submit those and we will answer those. But this is really going to be about a lot of information about what's happening on campus. So I'll start with sort of the first one, which is probably on everyone's mind, and that is, what do we do in spring quarter? So we are planning for mostly in person, going back to mostly in person for spring quarter. As you all know, or you may know, Pierce County is going to lift its mask mandate on Friday. And so we are in conversations with environmental health and safety on all three campuses to talk about how we're going to implement that here on campus. Most likely we would wait until the start of the new quarter instead of disrupting things this quarter. But as I said, we're in conversations as a tri-campus leadership team, but also with environmental health and safety. I've seen some data that was done, particularly from UWT faculty, who were giving feedback on whether or not the mask mandate should be lifted. And there was a lot of concern about Pierce County numbers compared to King County numbers. And what we've seen is Pierce County lags behind King County by a couple of weeks. So if we are, and all of the indicators, so we saw that with the Omicron variant, for example, the drop-off. So as we're thinking about Pierce County and King County both lifting the mask mandate on the same day, if we delay our implementation of removing the mask mandate until the beginning of spring quarter, we should be okay because of that lag. So we're expecting information to come out. I think they had incident command this morning, and so we are expecting that decision to come out either later tomorrow or at the latest by Wednesday. But I think the message for everyone is we are planning for in-person for spring quarter. And thanks to all of you who submitted data to Dr. Madaris, we know that this quarter, about 58% of our classes were in person. So we're getting there. I have described it as turning the dial rather than opening the floodgates. So as we are learning more about this variant and learning how to live with COVID, I think that's our collective reality as we move forward, that COVID is with us, and how we then adjust to moving forward with it is, it seems to be day to day, but no new variants have come forward, so that's good news, and we are moving forward for spring quarter. The other thing that is happening is the legislative session is ending this Friday. And so there's a lot of really interesting things going on in the session. Most bills that did not get out of session off the floor on Friday have died unless they are necessary for budget implementation. And we had quite a few things in that legislative request. including compensation as our highest priority. So both the House and the Senate have approved a 3.25% salary increase. They've funded that at different levels. You all may know that the way that we get salary increases, we're expected to pay for a part of that with tuition revenue collection. And so the House has said 50% of that will come from the legislature and 50% should come from tuition collection. The Senate has been much more generous, and they're saying 2/3 of that will come from the legislature and 1/3 of that from tuition collection. So we will see. For UWT, that has really important ramifications because, as you all know, our tuition collection is down. So I guess that is probably a really good segue to have Van come up and talk about the budget. I have been saying since October, I feel like in some ways, like, what is that story, Chicken Little, where I'm like, the sky is falling when I'm saying our enrollment is down. That has really severe implications for our budget. We've been talking about this since October. The deans have been just incredible partners to us in thinking about how we can not only improve retention, but also recruitment. And we have our new Associate Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Management who started last month. So we are being very aggressive about recruitment. In fact, Mentha and I visited a high school here in Tacoma last week, and we have plans to visit more of them. But serious budget implications for us when our enrollment is down. So I'm going to invite Van to come up and give us an update on that, and Milgard Hall while he's here. So for those of us who are coming to campus, we've been seeing this building coming out of the ground. It's incredible. And for those of you who are not coming to campus on a regular basis, we actually have a webcam where you can actually go and look at it. And it's pretty exciting to see what's happening with it. So Van, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Van Smiley, and I serve all of you as your Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration. All right, just a little bit about the budget. So Sheila gave a pretty good introduction of where we sit. And when you take the enrollment decline and put it in real dollars, it's a projected $4.5 million revenue shortfall. It is primarily due to our enrollment, and it's primarily due to both our recruitment and retention. It's the entire enrollment portfolio, although it's not completely all due to enrollment. I'll talk a little bit about that. One of the things I've discovered in my short time here on campus, sometimes I think a lot of folks may not understand where our monies come from, and they are primarily tuition driven. In the early days and years of this campus, there was a lot more state money available. So I wanted to make sure that people saw that approximately 28% of our financing comes from, or our budget comes from, general operating funds from the state government. So I just want to make sure people knew that. And then, you know, in this enrollment period we have where things are down and our tuition collections aren't looking as good as they used to, I want to make sure everyone knows that this just isn't UW-Tacoma. This is actually a trend across higher ed across the country, and it's specific against the demographic that kind of fits us, where you have first-generation students, a strong minority population, a lot of working students, and things that make up our campus demographic. So that affects campuses like ours nationwide, and we happen to kind of fit in that category. So while we may not have a lot of financial flexibility in the near term, what we're going to have to rely on, how do you get out of this type of stuff, is being pretty creative with our programs and our units. And you're going to have to just basically prioritize within your units and then reallocate within your units or your programs to meet your most critical needs. And that's going to be tough on some folks to do. But it's not a place that we haven't been before, but it's certainly a place that we have to navigate together. So as per policy, when you run a deficit like this, the main campus will put us into what they call a fiscal sustainability plan. And part of that is to maintain a campus reserve. 10% of our total budget has to be held in a reserve in case of a rainy day or emergency. So that's going to be part of how we have to work our way through this. We're working very closely with the Office of Planning and Budget up on the main campus. And our goal here is to hopefully close the year out whole. And what do I mean by that? meaning that we don't have to dip into the reserve, meaning that we can close the year out as budgeted and execute. So then, Van, if you close the year out whole, well, what does that mean for the next year? It means the next year, then we have to start in a place where we're acknowledging and recognizing the enrollment decline up front as we cast the new budget for next year. So that's what that means. And then you see the acronym of HERF up there, part of during the pandemic across the nation, you've seen the federal government allocate or allot monies for the Higher Education Relief Fund. We have been the beneficiary of some HERF funding for multiple programs across the campus. This time we're looking for HERF funding to help us, again, close out the fiscal year whole. Don't know what that looks like yet, but that's what we're working to do. And then moving forward, so, okay, you just don't fix enrollment overnight. How do we get out of this thing? What you'll see are some areas that we really need to assess, really need to plan for, and figure out how to fix together. You saw me talk about enrollment management. Obviously, that's a big part of it. But then there's also performance management. Are there things that we're doing that aren't performing to established standards or metrics? And if there are, then why are we doing them? What's the business case for continuing? Should we modify? Can we reorganize those things? Do we need to divest ourselves of those things? Those are questions that we have to ask. And those aren't easy questions. Those are hard questions. And sometimes they take courageous leaders to make hard decisions. Same thing with organizational structure. Are there places where we're redundant on campus? Where we have activities that are taking place in point A, similar activities and taking place in point B? Should we look at moving those things together and looking for efficiencies? We need to obviously prioritize and monitor our current spend. That's something that we should all be doing as stewards of public dollars and student tuition revenue. But sometimes you might find yourself getting into that, what I'd say, you kind of think that, hey, what we've always used to do is okay. This is the way we've always used to do it. Well, that's not okay. And sometimes in a situation that we're in right now, we have to look at our current spend and make sure we're spending and utilizing our resources as effectively as possible. It's important. Coming up, we're going to have to look hard at our in versus out-of-state enrollment and how we focus on that enrollment. And I tell you, the deans and our student affairs team and everybody is looking at this complete, just looking at the ratio of how we recruit and how we retain our students and where they're from because of the different rates they pay. Fees and rates is always a topic every year, but we've got to look hard at the fees and rates in order to ensure that we are charging the appropriate amount depending on what the specific item is. And that's everything from lab fees to rates for courses, you name it, all need to be on the table for review. And then topics like faculty to student ratios. Do we have the right faculty to student ratio in the classroom? Our biggest expense is our people. Over 85% of the dollars that we invest into this campus are to our people. So we got to make sure, based on that, that our faculty to student ratio is the right ratio depending on the program. And then finally, it's going to take an all-hands innovative approach. This is not a finance administration problem. This is not an academic problem. It's not a student problem, not a staff association problem, not a faculty assembly problem. It's a Tacoma dog problem. It's an all of us problem. So we're just going to have to lean in this together. Won't be easy. There'll be some hard decisions that have to be made over time. But when you pool the best minds together, then we can find that right fix out there for these different topics. Because I'm guarantee you somewhere out here in this audience, both live and virtual, is an idea that can help this campus. That's what we're going to need. And then before I move to Milgard, any questions? Do you know anything we have coming up that I need to be aware of? And I'll shift from budget to Milgard. Okay. On Milgard, so as Sheila mentioned, you know, I just started with this budget update, and it kind of pulls you down. You're like, wow. But then there's always that bright side. And with a name like Smiley, it's like, hey, you got to bring something that makes you smile. Walk outside, right here to my left, you look across from the mattress factory, and literally right out of the ground, you see the new Milgard Hall building. It is amazing to see the progress that they're making every day. So on the screen to the right is an image, a likeness of the building. To the bottom left is actually a screen capture from this morning, and that's exactly what the building looks like in its current state if you haven't been on the campus recently. So I'm happy to say that we're within scope, schedule, and budget, so we're executing everything that we had planned to execute. It is on time, and it was within the planned budget for Milgard Hall. That's amazing for just shy of a $55 million investment, given the pandemic, the supply chain problems we've been having, all those types of things. So to maintain us on scope, schedule, budget, the project team through Anderson Construction and ARO and the UW project delivery team has just been excellent. Scheduled to open in January of 2023, so that's when the programs will be live in the building, which is exciting. And it's right there on the website, but the building will house elements of the Milgard School of Business, the laboratory spaces to support SET program, School of Engineering. They'll provide an expanded space for the Global Innovation and Design Lab, and then a high-impact practices teaching space for broader campus usage, along with general classrooms. And then on the right side, down the bottom in the text, I just want to make sure I highlighted the use of this eco-friendly cross-laminated timber. It's sort of a cutting-edge construction today using locally sourced wood from the Pacific Northwest, and it comes prefabricated in these panels and just incredibly environmental friendly, cost-effective, and that's basically the basis of how we're building this building. Some of the major milestones coming up. You'll see the structure complete in March, which means the outer shell of the building. And then you'll see us move to a phase they call building dry-in, kind of towards the end of April going into May. And that's pretty much the building being complete on the exterior and the interior, and then you'll move to basically a finishing stage over the coming months as we get into the summer. And then I provided a link on the slides. If you wanted to see live construction, all you do is hit that link, and you'll see people walking, cars moving, trucks, cranes, all that kind of stuff. Pretty exciting. And I have this feeling when I kind of tie it back to the enrollment conversation, you talk to the programs that are moving into this building, really excited about the opportunity that this is going to present for our campus and the greater community and our ability to deliver programs. So that's what I had for you today. A little bit of a budget update, not exactly the best news, followed by Milgard Hall, a little bit of bright news, but we'll get there together. Sheila?
And I should add some other good news on Milgard. We did ask for $621,000, I think it is, or $28,000 for maintenance and operations for Milgard Hall. And we have that, the House and Senate have both allocated that in the budget. So we'll be able to, when the building opens in January, we'll have maintenance and operations dollars for that. And so you all know that we are in the middle of quite a few leadership searches. We have 2 vice chancellor searches going on, 2 dean searches going on, and so I wanted to just give a brief update on where we are. In fact, some of the folks from campus are not here because there is another search committee meeting that is meeting at the same time. So the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs is moving along at a fast clip. My understanding is they are getting to a point where they're going to start narrowing down their pool and looking at candidates. So that's a good way for us to go. We're still on track to have folks visit in the spring and have someone named before we leave for the academic year. We have the same aggressive schedule for the Vice Chancellor for Equity and Inclusion. That committee is meeting. They are not quite at a point where they are ready to look at resumes. They're a little bit behind the EVCA search, but they are moving fairly quickly. And I did see the job announcement last week, so I think it should be out on the streets now. So that's moving very quickly. And then the Dean of SAIS search is going on right now. Also pretty aggressive movement on that. And then you all know that Althoff Merchant is leaving to go back to the faculty. And so we have the Dean of the Milgard School search, and that committee met for the first time this morning. And they are moving along pretty fast. And that's a really great committee. Like all of our committees, we try to have a mix of faculty and staff and students internally, but also external constituencies. So on the Milgard search, we have been able to include some folks from the Milgard Executive Committee on that. So The other search that is going to start in the fall is, you all may know that Sharon Fault, who is was our Dean of Nursing, stepped down in January. And we're really grateful that David Reyes has stepped in and agreed to be the interim Dean of Nursing. And many of you all know David to be a longtime faculty member here at UWT. And so we will launch that search in the fall. So David has agreed to stay on until the end of next academic year. So lots of moving parts, and I've said no one else can resign or leave. So, so hopefully we will have our team finalized here by the time we start the next academic year in the fall. So speaking of having folks in interim roles, I want to thank Marion Harris for serving as our interim Vice Chancellor for Equity and Inclusion. And she's going to give us an update on some of the work that she's been doing. Is that right? Yes. Mask on.
I have just 2 training updates. The first one is Title IX training, which is required. We have 43% of our campus community who have completed this training. However, we need to be at 100%. The second training that I'd like to talk with you about is not required, but it's strongly encouraged, and that is training that we have contracted with RAIN, the nation's largest anti-sexual violence organization in the country. And the reason that we contracted for this training is because sexual harassment was an issue that appeared in our findings from the 2019 climate survey. This was an issue that was identified by faculty, by staff, and by students. And as I stated, we have contracted with RAIN to provide training for administrators, and that training will be on April 8th from 9 to 11. All training will be via Zoom. And I am very pleased to say, for the administrators training, we have more people who are registered than I originally thought. We were hoping for 50 people, and we have close to 70 people. And that's a good thing. Faculty, we're still taking registration. Andrew Siebert, the faculty assembly coordinator, is registering faculty. Staff, I'm pleased to say, have outnumbered faculty in registering for this training. And so I really would like for my faculty colleagues to step up. Eric Wilson Edge, the co-chair of the Staff Association, is actually registering staff. And again, all trainings will be via Zoom. And those are my updates. Any questions?
Thank you, Marion. Yeah, a lot of the work responding to the issues that were raised in the climate survey are being addressed this year through the training. So if you have not had an opportunity to sign up, please do so. And thank you, Marion, for all your hard work getting RAIN to come and do this work. They have a really good national reputation for doing this work all across college campuses. So some good news. You all may have seen some more good news. So, you know, sometimes the budget was the only downer today. Man, sorry about that. But you might have seen that we are commencement is going to be in person this year. So we're trying to address and bring back those classes that had virtual commencements. So we're bringing back the classes of 2021 and then this year's graduating class. And we're going to hold that at the Washington State Fairgrounds on Monday, June 13th. And we're continuing to consult with our students about the program. And one of the things that has come up is when we announced the location, some folks said, did you know that that was the site of Japanese internment during World War II? And yes, and so part of what we want to do, just like we do our land acknowledgement, is acknowledge the land that we're going to be on there and that history, and we're going to put that into the program and the remarks as part of the ceremony. So there is a commencement website, and most of the information is there. So I encourage you all to participate, save the date, put it on your calendar. I like to say, you know, we know we're successful when our students are walking across the stage. And for me, commencement is one of the most exciting things in my entire career. I think I've missed one. It is the celebration of our students and their accomplishments. So please plan to join us if at all possible. That is all we have today. So I think we'll open it up to questions.
So Sheila, I'm going to, before I announce that, I'm going to pull an audible and add an agenda item, and that is strategic planning. How could we forget that? So strategic planning kicked off last week. We had our first, well, it didn't kick off, it kicked off last year, but we've been doing all of our kind of preliminary work. We had our first gathering last week of the committee to get things moving. We are identifying all of the different various stakeholders of the University of Washington, both internal and external. And I believe we have 8 different tools that we will be using to reach out to you, whether they are, you know, group meetings or individual meetings or surveys or town halls or kind of gatherings around specific topics. There's a lot of tools that will engage you. I've told many people that the planning committee's job is not to create the strategic plan. The committee's job is to steward the process. The planning process, we're a committee of the whole. It's all of us that are going to be engaged in creating this next strategic plan. So I encourage you to be engaged. You'll start hearing more over the next few weeks as we roll out more information about how to be engaged and different engagement opportunities. So wanted to add that. And if you have questions and you're watching online, I encourage you to email them to uwttownhall@uw.edu. If you are in the room, which apparently if you're in the room, that means you're not serving on a search committee. But if you're in the room, please come to the microphone and ask a question. If you've got any questions, then let's have a discussion for the rest of the time. And if not, thank you for being here. Let me see if anyone has emailed, though. So, any questions?
So, while you're making your way up, Joe was joking about serving on a search committee. We do have quite a few search committees going on between our faculty searches and then all of these administrative searches. I think almost everyone is engaged. Yeah, we said we can't do any more searches because we don't have anyone else to serve on search committees. And it is labor intensive, a lot of time to serve on these search committees. So I just want to extend my appreciation to all of those who are serving on these search committees to help us bring that next round of talent to UWT. Hey there.
This is a question for Van or Sheila. You mentioned that enrollment drives budget, and as such, retention is a big part of it. I want to hear how you intend to be committed to student retention and what programs are in place that you would like to see continue.
Okay. So there are a couple things that are top of mind for me in terms of retention. When I look at our student demographics, you all may know that I am a product of TRIO, And so I am really grateful to Dr. Deidre Raynor for leading the effort to bring TRIO here, and have committed to working and supporting that effort in any way that I can personally to get TRIO here. I know that it works. And for those of you, it's student support services that I'm top of mind, but there's also a recruitment in terms of upward bound, and we're looking at upward bound math and science. And what that does is provide the academic enrichment for students on their way to UWT. And then student support services supports them while they're here with enhanced advising and some financial support. So we're hoping to do those kind of things. We're also really, frankly, just looking at how we are organized for student retention and what kinds of things we're doing now and what's working and what's not working. So trying to look at some best practices and benchmark where we are as a campus doing some of those things. You know, I'm a fan of intrusive advising. I don't know that we do that here. But intrusive advising across the country has been shown to increase retention, particularly for first-generation students. We have something here that most campuses don't have, and that is the first-generation program. So we want to look and see what we can do to strengthen what they're doing there, because I think that does make a difference, for, particularly with us, I think it's 56% of our students are first-gen. So that's a large segment of our population that doesn't necessarily have a parent or guardian who has gone through the process. And I'll tell you, even as my nephew was applying to college, I was like, I have a PhD, I do this for a living, and trying to get him through the college process was really, really difficult. So, and he ended up going to Bothell. Broke my heart. He wouldn't come to Seattle when I was there. But he went to Bothell, but it was really difficult. So trying to make sure that we can complement what family members are doing to support first-gen students is going to be really important.
And all I would simply add is making sure that we remind all of the staff that we all have a hand in the student experience when it comes to retaining our students. That goes from someone working in parking and transportation, to our custodial staff, to our finance staff, to our IT staff. Everybody has a hand in that touch point on a student and making sure that when they wake up that next morning that they want to stay here. So we've really, really got to just re-blue ourselves in that campus mission.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think about some of the surveys that have been done about why our students have left. And a lot of our students have left for financial reasons or because they were not doing well in the remote learning environment. So one of the things that we should do is reach out to those students to get them re-engaged, because they've already spent some time here at UWT. And as we are moving back to more in-person and things are normalizing somewhat in our this COVID environment, reaching out to those students to see if we can get them to come back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question about commencement, and it is, how is it going to work with having 2 ceremonies for 3 classes? Is the first one for 2020 and 2021, and the other be just for 2022? Do you want to take a shot at that? I can as well.
Since I don't know. You all know I'll be the first to admit when I don't know something, and I'm just going to say, if you know the answer.
Right. So our commencement is always broken up. It has, well, not always, but for the last probably 5-6 years has been broken into 2 ceremonies anyway. Some of our schools go in the morning, some of our schools go in the afternoon. We try to keep the total number equal. We're reaching out to the classes of 20 and 21 to see how many of them are interested in participating, but they would coincide with their school and when the school commencement is. If we have to add a third, we're hoping not to, but if we had to, we would add a third ceremony. But since the class of 2020 had a virtual ceremony, the class of 2021, how many of you were in the parking lot out there doing the drive-through in the pouring down rain last year? They had a drive-through ceremony, so this year we can be together in person, outdoors, and celebrate together. So, but that's the way we split them, is not by year, but by programs.
Oh, okay, well that makes sense. And I know that Bothell and Seattle are also inviting prior classes back and having multiple ceremonies. So I think as we look around the country, it's just the norm to try and bring back those classes that have those virtual celebrations.
And then I had another question about it being on a work day and not being able to attend. UW Tacoma's commencement has always been on a work day, either a Friday or a Monday. And that is the way based on, because there are 3 campuses, and as far as I know, there is only one president and provost, and so we can't split them multiple ways. So we have to spread our commencements out.
Okay, great.
Any other questions?
No other questions. Great. So as in the past, I would invite you all, if you have topics that you would like us to cover in a town hall, either with a panel or panel discussion or community discussion for a future town hall, get those to Joe so that we can get that arranged. Because our April town hall, this is March, yes, our April town hall will be a real town hall around the substantive issue and discussion. So if nothing else, thank you all for coming out. Appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of this happy Monday.